Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, this is sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra Woden. This is chapter 10. Look here, I'm just a humble maiden trying to put a roof over my head, and like I said before, the steep buried there is the old wish. Just finish digging up your proof and ignore Hagia and Hada, and they will do no harm as long as you do not provoke them, said Woden. And people still stared daggers at Woden and said to Turpin, finish your work. Quickly and effortlessly, they completely finished digging up the stiff. And the fool Esther should have dug a deeper hole, but she strikes me as being akin to sloth demons. And still, this is not a fair description of the girl. Rather, I had not known her well enough. And this makes me wonder a bit as to when did our kind start getting associated with a single vice. And we're not a one-trick pony. And sometimes we get bored of all vices, and at times we even resemble the pure creatures of light of yonder times. And in the end, such good disposition fades away when we are forced to act upon our current corrupted nature. And when the wrappings of the sticks were removed, they all moved back a pace, and the old hag was indeed recently dead. And not sufficing with desecrating the grave, the people turned Woden's newly acquired hut inside out looking for the missing girl. And shaking her head sadly, Woden said, what a bother. It is not as if your voice changed that much, I commented. And coming closer to Pippa, Woden raised her hair, and Pippa, coming closer, saw the mole on the bottom of the left of Woden's neck. And Woden and her mother shared the similarity, and to make further emphasis, Woden lifted her skirt to show Pippa the very light, large 1-inch birthmark. And with this, Woden's identity was verified, and to explain things in a manner that people could understand, Woden said as thus, a couple of weeks ago, I got into a fight with a super powerful creature, and I got injured, and I had to waste away all of my magic recuperating. And to hide from him, I disguised myself as a child and came into your town, and since he could not find me, he brought fire down from the mountains in an effort to kill me. And not caring about bystanders, and for getting you involved in my problems, you have my sincerest apology. And I do remember Philip mentioning something about you being possessed by a demon, said Turpin, look, mother, I spoke to the girl more than you did, and now a lot of things about her make sense. I mean, there's no way a little girl could have such an advanced vocabulary. Coming to terms with this lie, people said, what of Jolton? She chose a nameless brat from the orphanage, and since nobody even bothered to name the girl, I decided to call her Jolton. It means so in Finnish, a dead language that nobody in this world remembers, explained Woden. And you can take her or leave her. It's your choice. And Pippa was at a loss for words, and the day had been quite a stressful one with the fire and her husband, and Woden disappearing twice. And Turpin, picking up the cat, said to his mother, let's go home. Look, just because I'm not a helpless babe doesn't mean we cannot be friends. And you know where to find me, and next time please have the courtesy not to mess up my home, and I will forgive you the first time, but if you do so again, I will go into your home and throw all your furniture out the window, and see how you like it, said one, smiling, but putting her fists on her hips. Shaking hands with her, Turpin said, fair enough, by and by, do you have a cure for sadness? Woden reached into her rolls and brought out a flask with 500 tiny pills, and handing it to Turpin, she said, take one a day with milk, and also stop it with the booze and the smokes. Some daily exercise might also clear up the dour mood. And with this cure, the group returned to town, and once they were no longer within our line of sight, Woden and Hector set about putting everything back together. And the Duchess had made quite a mess, and they had broken a lot of the brittle items. And Woden brought out from her pocket a brush, and she scribbled something pointless on the wall, and soon the items returned to their locations, and the status they had been before the unwelcome visitors had come. Looking at what just occurred, I said to her, didn't you say that magic words were useless? There's a difference between magic words and magical patterns. Certain patterns do have magical aspect about them, and they trigger certain effects when called upon, and when using the proper tools, said Golden coyly. And what does it feel like you're just contradicting yourself every time we speak about magic? Asked Ethel. And but do tell me, why would I have issues with speaking of my father's secrets to the four winds? You haven't the talent for magic, so why bother knowing about it? Asked Woden. If you don't want to talk about it, just say so. You do not have to be so mean about it, I said peevishly. And turning to Ethel, Woden said, So we had the flat stones, the dingy furniture that seriously needs an update. And does this hut have an underground level or a basement? I don't know, said Ethel. Well, go find out, said Woden. And Ethel came to pick up a shovel to dig, and stopping her with her hand, Woden said, never mind. You, Bayl, you go down to look, and says you're not doing anything in particular. Can you magic yourself a sonar machine or something? I said, not bothering to stand up. I could, but it would violate the terms of my release, said Woden. Fine, whatever, I said, getting up to have a look. And says I did not have a physicality at the moment. I passed through the floor, and indeed there was something of a basement beneath the hut. In following past it, I found the hidden latch, and it was beneath the lumber pile. And I lifted the hatch after Woden and Ethel moved the pile, and turning to Ethel, Woden asked, how long have you lived with the stiff? About 30 years, said Ethel. Woden was about to ask more, but she changed her mind, and the musty room had not been opened in ages, and the room was rather low and so watched like a wine cellar. And there were some decrepit-looking stands with broken bottles, and only a single bronze basin was still in one piece. And the arch where the light and the air was supposed to come in was overgrown with roots, and aside from the bronze basin, there was nothing too awe-inspiring, which was a bit of a disappointment to me. And the bronze basin had a lot of cool design patterns, and it was large enough to hold a gallon of blood or water, depending on your mood. And the interior of the walls of the basin reminded me a bit of magic bowls. And they had the incarnation swirling all around the center, and while ruminating on the bowl, I said to Woden, maybe we should put it upside down and see what happens. Why would putting a bowl upside down cause anything to occur? Asked Ethel. This is just how magic bowls work, and the incantations will only take effect if the bowl is placed upside down, and others may even need to be buried, explained Woden. The bowl can either have a blessing or a curse directed at someone, I warned. And to illustrate the point, I placed the ball upside down and Woden saw the magic activate, and the spell circled around looking for a target a couple of minutes before settling back down. And picking up the ball again, I said, is that it? Such ball magic tends to be pretty specific, said Woden, taking the ball. And together we entered the hut and sat down with the ball, and after the spruce in the place seemed almost livable. And when I had placed in the interior a lot of chance to water with the vermin and other critters, and taking her index finger, she melted and smoothed out the portion of the bowl that had the element of a name. And even if we could not read the bowl, Woden still felt the condition of phrasing of it, and the meaning would become apparent once its powers were unleashed on an unfortunate target. And without consulting me, Woden put my name on it twice, and again the magic activated and circled around me, and before returning to its point of origin. And Woden tried the same thing again with Ethel and then herself, and finally Woden said, how odd. And for her final attempt, Woden put my name and Ethel's name, and this time it did something definitely. It banished me from the hut while Ethel still remained. And after erasing my name and summoning me back, we finally knew what the stupid bowl did. All that falls over a standard banishing spell. And still the fact that it banished me gave me plenty to think about, and where it sent me was an interesting place in and of itself. And it was a place surrounded by purple flowers, and the night sky was the same as the one in my home world, and it was full of spooks wandering about, and I did not see anything else because one had coming back inside, back to the world. And when I returned, Woden asked me, where did it take you? To some local place where there's a lot of purple flowers, and it wasn't so much as the other place, but it wasn't this one either. And there were a lot of ghosts, and perhaps it is the local afterlife, I said thoughtfully. The bowl has a death spell, so it was seen, explained Woden. I don't know, said Ethel, and why would it require a second person's name for the death spell to activate that only affects a single individual? This is just the format of all of the magic bowls that actually where the victim is a person or thing that is tormenting another fellow, so you should provide a blessing that is also a curse, said Woden. Very interesting, but it all boils down to so what, I said, not amused. And I had an arbitrary rooster sing, and it was only a couple of hours till sunrise, and Woden was in the middle of polishing the bowl, and she placed X and S on the two conditioners to seal the magic of the bowl. Now it was just a regular, boring bronze bowl. And I said to Woden, why do you seal it up? Because just as the same way that the locals cannot take stuff from our home, we are not allowed to take anything that we do not really want. And this bowl is just a curiosity, but nothing too far out there as far as magic junk is concerned. And I have better ones, and I have seen better ones in my day, said Woden. But why not allow another magic fellow to use it, I insisted. Some spells are too dangerous for the local wildlife, and if left be, magical people could destroy the world or something like it, and some spells and their approximations are only allowed back home, explained Woden, and such are the terms prescribed by the area master of this world. And how does the sealing work, I asked. I do not know something. It is not something I am going to get into at the moment, and I haven't the ability to fund the ritual anyway, said Woden. Which reminds me, I wonder what is the flavor in this world. The flavor, I said, not understanding. You know, magic flavor. Ideally, Osco should have been thought, but a lot of things fall through the cracks over the generations or whatever, said Woden. And getting up, Woden took the hag's crystal ball, and after staring at it said, that is just a regular crystal ball my mistress used to con people. Crystal balls work like telescopes. They refract and it has one field of foresight. And I cannot see either the future nor the past, but I have a pretty decent view of the present. And by performing the proper hand motions, I should be able to see what I'm looking for, said Woden, starting to move her hands about in such a clever fashion. She went like this around the magic crystal. Ooh. Esther looked at me questioning, and I shook my head in negation to illustrate my current disbelief. And after a couple of minutes of this nonsense, Woden said, I see. Sure you do, I said, chuckling. The spell most commonly used at the moment is the magic rite, and is designed to turn ether into spiritual powers, and the magic ritual involves killing the host's magic user, explained Woden. Can you see the identity of the guilty party? I said, looking at the crystal ball with distrust. I don't know, only the residue of this chemical reaction remains, and I might be able to pinpoint it if the spell was being used right now, and if I was paying attention to it specifically, and I'm going to send a search query to the server, said Woden, getting up. And once out in the garden, she raised her hand, and a couple of those little whimsical balls of light floated above her for a minute, and she then told the children of her concerns, and they departed as quickly as they came, and one returned only to say, I'm not certain if you're aware of it, but... And then he hovered over the unburied corpse of the hag, and putting her palm to her forehead, Woden said, Oh, by the gods, we forgot to cremate the hag. And taking a pile of lumber, Woden unceremoniously shoved them into the hole, and then she said to Ethel, care to do the honors? I certainly will not, protested Ethel. And would you prefer a sky barrier? And I know where there's a nice clearing in the woods where the vultures like to hang out. And I could also leave it in a decent place for the wolves to find the body, suggested Woden. Your protestations surprised me, Ethel, and I said coming over to inspect the corpse. And I reached down to perform some unsavory action, but Woden slapped my hand away, and to put an end to the matter, Woden burned the body herself. And Ethel watched the corpse be consumed in trance, and the process itself was scheduled to take at least 3 hours, and leaving Ethel to muse, Woden and I set about to doing something productive with our time. And sitting down on the hay bed, Woden bounced up and down, and detesting it, she brought it out with me and threw it on top of the burning pile we had outside. And Ethel grimaced at us, but said nothing, and it seemed that there were certain things that were sacred to the local demons of this world. And I suppose I too would be moody if I saw utter disdain for the remains of something I care about. Still, I suppose I would not allow myself to care about something so ephemeral as a person. Woden made a mental note of acquiring a proper bed, and then started working on the hay roof of the mud hut. And after funging around it and having her feet caved into it under a few times, she decided that a new roof was needed. And she then brought water from a nearby well into a spot to develop clay, and once the ground was nice and soggy, we added loam and sealed into the mix. We still had to let it sit for a couple of weeks, and everything was a work in progress in a new residence. And with the issue of the interior settled, Woden set about watering the gardens, and she fed special fertilizers to the plants that seemed to be completely dead. And the bag containing this fertilizer had a little blue dragon painted on it, and it was one of the few otherworldly items that we were allowed to take. And with any luck, the plants would return from the dead, and if not, we could always add them to the hag's funerary pile. And this had a nice ring to it, and I said to Woden, when we open up shop, we should call ourselves the Hag's Spire. Good idea, said Woden, patting me on the head, and I gleefully went about to carve out the sign using one of the pieces of lumber. And normally humans would need to refine it, but my nails and teeth were made of reinforced iron, and as such I had the sign ready and sanded in a jiffy, and I then nailed it to the front door before standing back to admire my work. Woden meanwhile was at a bit of a loss for thought, and eventually she said, we should put a way for the locals to find us. Like road signs, I asked. Something like it, said Woden. And reaching into her private store, Woden brought out a couple of red paper lanterns, and she hung them in low tree branches and slowly making a path back to town. And all of the lanterns were round and each with a unique painted pattern. And despite being made of paper, they were waterproof, and I noticed then when a few drops of water falling on one of them did not turn soggy or inky mush. And halfway back to town, Ethel joined us, and she took me a motion to help with the installation of the lantern, and touching one, she was amused by the fact that they did not burn to a crisp. And once all of the lanterns were installed in Woden trays, a square with her index finger in the air, and the lantern soon started to glow with a very gentle silver light, and it was stronger deeper into the forest, and outside of town it was barely noticeable due to the radiance of the morning sun. And one of the locals passing by asked, "What are those round things for?" "They are to guide people to my abodes, and I have set up a permanent shop in the forest, and should you require my assistance, and I do not want you to get lost," explained Woden. "Now that is a first," commented the gentleman. "How so?" asked Woden curiously. "Usually witches go out of the way not to be found," said the gentleman. "I am not a witch, therefore I have no need to hide from others," said Woden. "Well, you are a magic user, are you not?" asked Woden. "Yes, by vocation, not by profession," said the Woden. "And you are a woman," asked the man. "I am female, and yet a woman, not yet a woman, not quite a girl," answered Woden. "Being a woman and a magic user makes you a witch," said the man flatly. "You can call things whatever you want, but that still won't change their nature. As for mine, if you are to enforce the law, it's that of a termagant," said Woden. Alright, so let's just leave it here for now. Bye-bye and God bless.